If you've cut back on sugar, skipped dessert, and even stopped buying candy, but your blood sugar still isn't where you hoped it would be, you are not alone. I'm Mike Anderson, and welcome. This is our first video together. If you're tired of health advice that sounds smart but never actually changes anything, you're in the right place. No fluff, no fear mongering, just real information that actually works, pulled straight from actual research instead of someone just telling you to eat healthier and calling it a day. Many people focus on what they're removing from their diet, while completely overlooking one decision they make almost every time they shop for groceries, whether that's a Walmart run, a trip to Kroger, or just grabbing stuff at Target on the way home. It's not an expensive superfood, it's not a supplement, and it isn't hiding in the health food aisle. In fact, you've probably walked past it 100 times without ever clocking that it was the fix. It's a simple grocery swap that can make your meals much more blood sugar friendly, and by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what it is, why it works, and how to use it every time you shop. Quick favor first, hit that like button. Takes 1 second and it genuinely helps this reach someone out there who really needs it. Maybe someone who just got a scary number back from their doctor and doesn't know where to start. Now drop a comment for me, your age, and whether it's you or someone you love dealing with high blood sugar. I'll read every single comment personally, but I'm not going to hand you the whole answer in the next 30 seconds. And here's why. Because it's not really one product, it's a pattern. And once your brain locks onto that pattern, you'll start seeing it everywhere: the bread shelf, the cereal boxes, even the drinks in the cooler. We're going to build this up together, piece by piece, because honestly, every piece matters on its own. By the end, you won't just have one grocery tip rattling around in your head. You'll have a completely different way of looking at your entire cart, including the stuff already sitting in it right now. So, let's start with the question that's probably bugging you already. Why doesn't just cutting sugar work the way everyone says it will? Picture this, because I promise someone watching this right now is living it. Somebody goes in for a regular checkup, and the doctor mentions their blood sugar's a little high. Nothing scary, just enough to stick in their head that whole night. So, they go home, and they do exactly what they've been told. Cookies, gone. Ice cream, gone. Soda, swapped out for water. Every single day. 3 weeks in, they're feeling good about it. Maybe even telling people, yeah, I cleaned up my diet. They check their blood sugar again, fully expecting it to have paid off. And the number barely moved. If that sounds familiar, I want you to actually hear this next part instead of just nodding along. This happens to people constantly, and it is not because they didn't try hard enough. It's because sugar was never sitting alone at the top of the list of things that actually move the needle. And here's the frustrating part. Every week you keep guessing instead of knowing. You could be quietly undoing the exact discipline you worked so hard for. Here's the blunt version. No sugarcoating it. Your body genuinely does not care whether a carbohydrate came from a candy bar or a slice of plain white bread. Once it's broken down, both of them end up becoming the exact same thing: glucose, dumped into your bloodstream. The difference was never whether it turns into sugar, it's how fast. And honestly, this is kind of baked into what nutrition folks here in the US call the standard American diet: heavy on refined grains, light on fiber. It's not anyone's fault, it's just how the average American grocery cart ends up looking by default, unless you know what to watch for. And that one detail, speed, is usually the real reason a change that started strong quietly stops working by week 3. Before we go further, let's talk about why this actually matters, beyond just a number on a screen. When blood sugar spikes and crashes over and over, you'll usually feel it before you ever see it on a test. That afternoon energy crash, getting hungry again way too soon, that foggy feeling around 3 p.m. that makes it hard to focus. Over time, this pattern's also been linked to a higher risk of heart, kidney, eye, and nerve problems. I'm not telling you this to scare you, just so you understand why this deserves more than a 2 week burst of motivation. And here's the good news. Once you know what's actually driving these swings, the fix isn't complicated, restrictive, or expensive. It just takes knowing where to look, which is exactly what we're about to do. Let's slow down for a second, because once this clicks, everything else in this video makes a lot more sense. When you eat carbs, your body breaks them down into glucose, the fuel your cells actually run on. That glucose enters your blood, and your pancreas releases insulin to move it out of your bloodstream and into your muscles, where it gets used. Here's the part that matters. Your body reacts differently depending on how fast that glucose shows up. A big wave all at once forces your pancreas to scramble and release a big wave of insulin right back, and that constant back and forth is thought to strain the system more over time. A slow, steady trickle is a completely different story. Insulin gets released calmly, and your blood sugar rises and falls gently instead of spiking and crashing. This is the foundation for everything else in this video. It was never about how much carb is in a food. It's about how fast your body has to process it. Quick preview of where this is headed. The biggest difference between two foods with nearly identical carb counts on the nutrition facts label often isn't sugar at all. It's a single detail, printed in tiny text, near the bottom, the part almost everyone skips. I'll show you exactly what it is shortly. But here's the thing. Let's walk the aisles together first, because this pattern shows up in more places than you'd expect. It might already be sitting in your pantry right now, and you may have picked it because it looked like the healthy option. Let's start with one of the most common items in almost every kitchen in the country. Bread's usually the first thing people cut when someone tells them to watch their blood sugar. But the real question was never whether to eat bread. Bread's practically a birthright in this country. It's which bread? White bread comes from flour that's been heavily refined, meaning the bran and germ, the parts of the wheat that hold the fiber, vitamins, and minerals, get stripped out. What's left is basically pure starch, and starch like that breaks down fast the second it hits your system. Bread made from grains that are still mostly intact works differently. More of the original structure survives, so digestion happens gradually, which usually means a steadier rise in blood sugar instead of a sharp spike. Here's a way to picture it. Pour water through a coffee filter versus a wide-open funnel. Both let the water through eventually, but one slows it down and spreads it out. That's what fiber does inside a slice of bread. So here's the actual tip. Ignore the big words on the front. Multigrain, hearty, made with whole grain, and flip it over. Look at the first ingredient. If it says 100% whole wheat or whole grain first, that's a stronger sign than a loaf that opens with enriched wheat flour, even if the packaging looks identical. Pause the video for 10 seconds. Go check the bread in your kitchen. If enriched wheat flour is the first word on that ingredient list, you just found your first swap without leaving the house. You didn't get rid of bread, you upgraded it. That's the whole mindset of this video, not restriction. Replacement: bread's just one shelf. The next one might surprise you more. One of the most common breakfast choices out there, often marketed as heart healthy, can spike your blood sugar faster than a slice of cake. And there's a decent chance it's sitting in your pantry right now. Breakfast gets called the most important meal of the day a lot. For plenty of people, whether it's a rushed weekday morning or a lazy Sunday bowl in front of the game, it's also the meal that creates the single sharpest blood sugar spike of their whole day. And cereal is usually the reason why. Even cereals with whole grain, printed proudly on the front, can be ground down so fine during processing that your body barely has to work to break them down, which means they can behave almost like straight sugar once they hit your system. That's true even for boxes that look completely wholesome sitting on the shelf. Here's why. Heavy processing grinds the grain into really fine particles. Sounds like a small detail, but it matters a ton. Finer particles mean way more surface area for your digestive system to work through, which means faster digestion, which means a quicker spike. Here's a comparison that makes it click instantly. A big ice cube melts slowly. Crush that exact same ice into little pieces, and it melts almost instantly. Same water, same material, completely different speed just because the structure changed. Processed cereal behaves exactly the same way. Fine, fast-digesting particles that dump their sugar into your system almost all at once. That's why steel-cut oats, old-fashioned rolled oats, or an unsweetened muesli tend to give you a way steadier response than a bowl of flake cereal. Even one with whole grain, printed proudly across the box. Quick gut check. Go grab your cereal box right now and flip it over. If sugar shows up in the first three ingredients, you've basically been eating dessert for breakfast without knowing it. Picture two mornings. Morning 1, a bowl of sweetened flake cereal, and by 10:30, you're hungry again, hunting for a snack. Morning 2, steel-cut oats, some berries, a small handful of walnuts, roughly the same amount of carbs both mornings. But on morning 2, you're satisfied for hours longer. You didn't cut carbs, you just changed their form and added some fiber and healthy fat alongside them. What if the food everyone blames for blood sugar spikes isn't actually the problem? Let's look at rice, and something sitting right next to it that nobody ever checks. Rice isn't automatically good or bad. Context matters just as much as it did with bread. White rice has had its outer layer stripped away during processing, kind of like white flour. Brown rice keeps more of that structure intact, including the fiber, which slows digestion down. That's a real, meaningful difference. Go check your pantry right now. If the bag just says rice or long grain white rice with nothing else on the label, there's a good chance it's the fastest digesting version out there. Drop a comment and let me know. Is brown rice already in your kitchen? Or is this the first you're hearing it matters? But here's what most people completely miss. Brown rice isn't the only upgrade on that shelf. There's a whole lineup of options most people walk straight past without a second look. Quinoa, barley, farro, wild rice, and legumes like lentils and chickpeas, each bringing their own fiber, and in some cases protein, to the table. Legumes especially tend to be gentler on blood sugar because they pair fiber and plant-based protein in the exact same food. Sometimes the smartest move isn't finding one perfect replacement you eat forever. It's just widening the rotation a bit so you're not leaning on the same fast-digesting option meal after meal, week after week. Here's something that trips up even careful label-reading shoppers. And not because they weren't paying attention. They were looking at the wrong part of the package the whole time. There's a two-word phrase on packaging that's quietly one of the most misleading claims in the entire grocery store, and it's probably not the one you'd expect. Sugar-free sounds like exactly what you'd want to see on a label if you're watching your blood sugar, right? But here's the catch. Those two words only answer one question. Was sugar added or not? They say nothing about how fast the rest of that food turns into glucose once it hits your system. Here's the part almost nobody checks. A lot of sugar-free cookies, crackers, and snack bars are basically just refined starch dressed up. And refined starch breaks down so fast, your body can barely tell the difference between eating it and eating spoonful of sugar straight up. Same spike, different label. So no, sugar-free isn't lying to you. It's just not telling you the one thing that actually matters, the thing we're about to get into right now. Quick question before we move on. A whole apple and a glass of apple juice. Same fruit. Does your body treat them the same way? Not even close. Juicing strips out almost all the fiber, the part that normally slows sugar down on its way into your blood. So what's left in that glass is fast sugar with nothing standing in its way. And here's the twist that catches people off guard. Drink that juice first thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, and you get one of the sharpest spikes you can have all day, because there's nothing else in there to slow it down either. Juice doesn't need to disappear from your life. But if it's become a daily habit, juice, smoothies, whatever, it's worth knowing it's playing a very different game than the whole fruit it came from. So go check. What's actually in your fridge right now? Drop a comment. Juice, smoothie, or whole fruit? What's your go-to? One more category before we move on. And this one fools even people who've already cut out sugar completely, because it doesn't taste sweet at all. This is where a ton of daily snacking sneaks in without anyone ever noticing. Snacking itself was never the villain here. Between game day spreads, road trip gas station stops, and plain TV couch snacking, most of us are doing a lot of it. The issue is that most packaged snacks, crackers, pretzels, plenty of granola bars, are built from the same refined, fast-digesting starches we've already talked through with bread and cereal. They're cheap, they're everywhere, they're shelf-stable, which is exactly why they're worth a second glance. An easy upgrade. Swap refined crackers for something like roasted chickpeas, a small handful of unsalted nuts, or a piece of whole fruit with a bit of nut butter on it. Each of those pairs fiber with either protein or healthy fat, which softens the blood sugar hit compared to a fistful of crackers eaten solo. This one's small, but it adds up fast. A daily snack habit repeated 5 or 6 times a week ends up having a much bigger cumulative effect than one dessert eaten every once in a while. Curious. Quick question before we keep moving. Has sugar-free ever tricked you the same way it trips up basically everyone? Drop it in the comments. It's one of the most common, most understandable mix-ups out there, and you're in very good company. And if this is already reshaping how you're going to shop next time, excited, go ahead and hit subscribe now. We break down exactly this kind of practical, evidence-based stuff every single week. There's one more piece worth adding to this picture, and it's protein. Protein doesn't just build muscle. It plays a real role in how satisfied a meal leaves you feeling, and in how your body handles the carbs sitting next to it on the plate. When a meal includes a solid source of protein, digestion slows down a little, which tends to soften the blood sugar response even further. This is exactly why white rice eaten with grilled chicken and vegetables behaves differently than that same rice eaten completely by itself. Easy grocery upgrades here: Greek yogurt, eggs, beans, lentils, tofu, fish, skinless poultry, unsalted nuts. Nothing exotic. Nothing you can't find in a normal grocery store. No single food on that list is magic. But building your meals around a handful of these, consistently, tends to support a much steadier overall pattern. Picture two versions of the same lunch. Version 1, a plate of white rice, eaten alone. Version 2, a slightly smaller portion of that exact same rice, next to grilled chicken, some vegetables, a drizzle of olive oil. Total carbs are basically the same in both versions, but version 2 gives you a noticeably gentler blood sugar rise, mostly because of what's sitting next to the rice, not the rice itself. Same idea applies at the holidays. Think Thanksgiving. Nobody's saying skip the mashed potatoes and the stuffing. Loading your plate with turkey and some green veggies alongside them does real work in softening that spike. No deprivation required. This isn't a rule that asks you to give something up. It's just one question, every meal. What else is on this plate? Okay, we've covered a lot of ground. Bread, cereal, grains, drinks, snacks, protein. You might be sitting there wondering, what actually connects all of this? What's the one thing worth remembering next time you're standing in an aisle with zero time to overthink anything? Here it is. This is the whole video, boiled down. Every single swap we just walked through comes down to the same three questions. Does it have fiber? Does it have some protein? Is it lower in added sugar than the thing sitting right next to it on the shelf? That's it. That's the entire principle running underneath everything you just heard. Not avoid sugar, not avoid carbs. Just those three questions, asked over and over, aisle after aisle, trip after trip. You don't need to memorize which exact brand of bread or cereal wins. You need to remember to ask those three questions and to compare, not eliminate. The question was never, is this food good or bad? It's, is there a slightly better version sitting an arm's length away? That mental shift right there, that's the actual swap this video promised you. Quick gut check. How many of these have you made without even realizing it? Mistake 1. Treating sugar-free as automatically blood sugar safe, when the ingredient list is often telling a completely different story underneath. Mistake 2. Ignoring portion size even after making a genuinely better swap. Brown rice over white rice is a real improvement, but a huge portion of brown rice can still raise blood sugar meaningfully. The swap helps. It doesn't cancel out portion. Mistake 3. Eating carbs completely solo. No protein, no fiber, even when the carb itself was a good choice. Mistake 4. Expecting one great grocery trip to undo months of a totally different pattern. Consistency beats any single decision, every time. Mistake 5. Comparing a food to some imaginary, perfect version instead of what's realistically sitting right next to it. The useful question is always the one right beside whatever you're already holding. A bit more fiber, a bit more protein, a bit less sugar? 5 seconds, standing in the aisle, no nutrition degree required. None of these are personal failures. They're just gaps nobody ever explained clearly. Drop a comment. Which one got you? If you caught yourself in one of those, you're in good company. These trip up careful label readers every week. If this is helping the picture click, send it to someone in your life who's laser focused on cutting sugar, but hasn't heard about this bigger piece yet. Hey, if you've made it this far, thank you. A couple more myths to clear up, then one small challenge before we close out. 3 myths, quick clear up. Myth 1: high blood sugar means no sugar, ever again. Not really true for most people. The bigger picture: fiber, protein, activity, your doctor's actual plan, usually matters more than any single ingredient. Myth 2: one perfect meal or superfood fixes everything. Blood sugar responds to movement, sleep, stress, medication, even time of day, not just food. Small, boring habits beat any single dramatic change. Myth 3: eating this way is expensive. Beans, lentils, oats, frozen vegetables, eggs, canned fish, plain yogurt, some of the cheapest things in the store, and all on the USDA's own budget staples list. This was never about the pricey health food aisle. Same shelf, same price, slightly better pick. I want to be straight with you about something important here. Everything in this video is general health education. It's not personalized medical advice, and it's absolutely not a substitute for guidance from your own doctor. If you're noticing things like increased thirst, needing to pee way more often, unexplained weight loss, blurry vision, cuts that seem to take forever to heal, or fatigue that just won't quit, please talk to your doctor. Those symptoms don't automatically mean something serious, but they do deserve a real evaluation, not a video. And if you've already been diagnosed with diabetes or anything similar, please don't stop or adjust your medication based on this video or anything you find online. Medication decisions always belong with the healthcare provider who knows your full history. This video is here to help you shop and eat with a bit more confidence, not to replace the personalized care only a real professional can give you. Before we wrap up, one simple challenge. On your next grocery run, don't overhaul everything at once. That never sticks. Just pick one swap. Maybe it's the bread. Maybe it's juice for whole fruit a few mornings a week. Maybe it's just tossing a can of beans in the cart that wasn't there before. One small change, that's enough to start. Lasting change never comes from one big overhaul. It comes from small decisions, and those start in the grocery aisle before dinner even happens. Cutting sugar is a reasonable first move, but it's rarely the whole picture. White bread, plenty of cereals, juice, refined rice, a lot of it behaves almost exactly like sugar once it hits your bloodstream, no matter what the label says. The real swap was never one product. It's a habit. 3 questions, standing at the shelf. Fiber? Protein? Less added sugar than what's next to it? You don't have to get this perfect. You just have to start asking. Next trip. Nobody manages blood sugar perfectly. Every meal, every day. That was never the goal. What works is smaller. 1 question, standing in front of a shelf. Is there a slightly better version right next to this one? Ask it consistently, and it stacks up into steadier energy, fewer crashes, more confidence walking into a store. Your future health was never one perfect meal away. It's built one grocery trip at a time. If this reshaped how you're going to shop this week, hit subscribe. We break down exactly this kind of practical, no-fear headline content every week. One last thing before you go. Tell me in the comments which swap you're trying first. Bread, cereal, juice for whole fruit? Your answer might be the exact nudge someone scrolling the comments needs to finally start too. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.